See the light, see the light, see Solar Bright.
Come and see Solar Bright's new Port Macquarie store and grab great bargains on solar panels, batteries, skylights and solar roof ventilators. Talk to the experts and save thousands on our grand opening deals. Solar Bright, trusted since 2008 and awarded Australia's top brand solar installer. See the new showroom, corner of Lake and Jindalee Roads, or visit solarbright.com.au.
Well, you would have heard in the news today another anti-Semitic attack in Sydney overnight. A Maroubra childcare centre set ablaze and graffiti written nearby. And you would have heard this with John Stanley on the Drive Show. There's also been anti-Semitic graffiti sprayed onto St Andrew's Cathedral. It has since been removed. Well, after growing pressure, the Prime Minister convened a National Cabinet meeting this afternoon. I read the report from that to you a little earlier. That was a release from the federal government. They've agreed to establish a national database for anti-Semitic crimes. And there's also been an interesting update in that federal police are investigating whether malicious foreign actors are paying local criminals to carry out these violent acts. I stress that is just a theory. It's an investigation at the moment that the federal police are looking at. May provide some insight as to who these people are making these attacks. Dr. David Adler is the president of the Australian Jewish Association, and he joins us now. David, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Bill, and unfortunately we're discussing a very unpleasant subject, but happy to help.
There's been a strong response from both the Premier Chris Minns and other state leaders, of course, and the Prime Minister this afternoon. Strong enough?
Well, the words are only a start, of course, and it's very, very late. This should have been jumped on shortly after the 7th of October 2023. We all remember the disgraceful anti-Semitic riots on the Opera House forecourt, and until very recently, they've been given largely a free pass. Now, if you wanted to take a bit of a cynical view, you'd say, oh, we're getting very close to an election and maybe this could be an election issue, so now it's time to actually do some action. And to their credit, the police have started to take some action. They've arrested a number of alleged offenders, and we hope to see successful prosecutions and serious penalties and jail time applied so there's a proper deterrence. In Australia, there's been no deterrence so far.
With this National Cabinet meeting this afternoon, they're going to establish a national database. Your thoughts on that? I mean, clearly stricter penalties, yes, but we've got to bring these people to justice in the first place. We've got to find them. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that having a database is not a bad thing. It doesn't in itself solve the problem, but it might assist with coordination and information between the various law enforcement authorities, the state police and the Australian Federal Police, and potentially ASIO as well, who are all involved in different aspects of investigation. So it does make sense that there should be a central database. In our view, it doesn't solve the problem, but it could be a useful tool in the process.
Now, as you pointed out, this has gone a long way down the track since about a year ago. The attacks seem to be increasing in severity and frequency. The targets, which this is very distressing, I'm sure, David, for you particularly, sometimes indirectly connected to Jewish communities. I think you know what I mean there, because you had the house that was formerly owned by Alex Rivgin, for example, a childcare centre. It's hard to get a handle on the motives and the direction of these attacks, which makes it even more frightening.
Indeed. I mean, let's call it what it is. This is domestic terrorism.
Yes.
Terrorism is, violence, illegal, directed against a civilian group for a political purpose. It meets all the components of the definition of terrorism, and it needs to be treated with the seriousness of any other terrorist act. And look, sometimes they're not all that intelligent, and they're a little off target. The childcare centre that was attacked just under 24 hours ago in Maroubra in Sydney was not a Jewish business. It was, yes, next door to a synagogue. It used to be owned by a Jewish family, but they sold it about a year ago. So, it's affecting all sorts of people through Australia. And, the families that would send their children there will also be worried as to whether this childcare centre or indeed other childcare centres could be targeted. I mean, what sort of low-life targets a childcare centre?
Well, exactly, which brings us to how do we sort of get a profile on these people, David? I know the penalties are important, the severity of them is important, but it comes back to identifying these people, and to do that you have to come up with some kind of profile, and it's not easy at the moment, is it?
No, because it's multifarious. It's not a single group. If you look at the experience of anti-Semitic attacks locally and elsewhere, it does tend to come from a few defined groups. Unfortunately, within the Islamic communities are a minority that can be radicalised and that can extend to violence. So we've seen that. We know that we've got hate preachers in Sydney, and not sufficient action has been taken against those. There is a relatively small group of neo-Nazis who are also highly anti-Semitic, and the third group is the left-wing socialist, communist, activist types that you see, and sometimes you see them all mixed up in the demonstrations, and all sorts of funny conflations. But they tend to be the groups that are most likely to launch violent anti-Semitic attacks.
Yeah, I was going to say that. They're basically the three types of people that you would see, for example, in the pro-Palestinian marches and in those that have got out of hand, and you made a point about the Opera House, for example. So you're talking really about radicalised versions of those three groups, and I guess there are other fringe elements, but they're three basic starting points, I suppose, aren't they? And I guess that's where the federal police will be looking.
Yeah, and we need to open up a wider discussion about such things as immigration policy, such things as education in the schools and the universities, which has gone off the rails a bit, frankly, and so people don't learn their history properly. They don't learn the value of Western civilization, of Judeo-Christian ethics, whether you're religious or not. That's what our modern society is built on. And, it may well need a change of leadership in order to affect those changes. We are a little bit encouraged by some of the things that President Trump has announced so quickly. And maybe there'll be a bit of a flow-on effect in Australia too.
There was this theory this afternoon, I don't know how much substance is behind it in terms of the federal police investigation or the state investigations, but this suggestion that these attacks could have been paid for by people overseas. Now, we have seen at least one alleged offender who's been before the courts linked to other criminal offences. They were drug offences, so they're unrelated. So that perhaps, I don't know, might add weight to that theory.
It's interesting that the Commissioner for the Australian Federal Police has made that statement publicly today, which suggests that he does have intelligence that points in that direction. Now, we are aware of Iranian-backed activity in Australia and in other countries. There have been paid operatives caught in Europe, in Sweden last year, in Israel. Iranian money has funded terror examples, and we have quite good dialogue with the Iranian diaspora. These are the Iranians who don't want the Islamic regime. They don't like the Ayatollahs, and they talk to us, and they say that since Obama in the latter part of his presidency, released over $100 billion into Iran, there has been a little bit of that money find its way to Australia, and there are operatives. So it could well be, if one wants to speculate a bit, that it is a worthwhile line of investigation for the Australian Federal Police.
We're talking to Dr. David Adler, who's the president of the Australian Jewish Association. I have a couple more questions, if you don't mind, David, but we have to take a break. Is it okay if you wait on till we come back?
Very happy.
Thank you very much. We're talking to Dr. David Adler, the president of the Australian Jewish Association. Thanks for waiting on, David. There were media reports over the weekend, and we've already made it clear that this isn't just a religious issue, at least we hope it's not, but various religious leaders getting together over this, particularly, of course, Muslims and Jews, in a show of support. Has that progressed? Are you aware of anything?
We've actually been quite disappointed that from the 7th of October 2023, while there have been some individuals in the Islamic community that have spoken out, no organisations, no major organisations have actually condemned the Hamas terrorism, called for the release of hostages. It's a difficult situation. Maybe they're feeling some risk of backlash from within their communities. The Christian groups, on the other hand, have largely been very supportive, and some of the initiatives to call out and oppose anti-Semitism have actually come spontaneously from within the Christian community. So that's good. Some of the smaller religious groups, the Hindus, Sikhs, and others have also been supportive.
And finally, your message to the Jewish community on the back of these attacks.
Well, the Jewish community has a history of being very resilient, of having outlasted all the persecutors from ancient times to modern times. We will get through this. We have, I think, we're holding to the hope that in Australia there is a quiet majority that are appalled at what's happening on our streets, that don't want to see the Jewish community persecuted. The Australian Jewish community began with the First Fleet. A lot of people don't know that. So unless you're a full-blood Aboriginal, the Australian Jewish community has longevity as much as anyone and makes a tremendous contribution to Australian society in all fields, professions, business, law, medicine, arts, military, whatever, and we look forward to doing so for many, many years going forward.
Well, I'm sorry we have to have these conversations, mate. Let's hope not for much longer. But Dr. David Adler, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bill.
Polestar 4 has landed in Australia. Scandinavian by design with innovative tech and sustainable solutions. Polestar 4 is the SUV coupe for the electric age. Discover its powerful acceleration, luxurious interior and advanced technology for yourself. Polestar 4, SUV comfort with sports coupe handling and performance. Don't just imagine the future, drive it. Book your test drive today at polestar.com.
Winston with a Y. The BOGO sale is on now.
Buy one, get one 50% off store-wide. Save on blinds and curtains, CrimSafe security, shutters and awnings.
We've got you covered inside and out.
Plus, don't lift a finger without free measure and quote and free installation.
Limited time only. Buy one, get one 50% off. Ends January 31st. Visit winston.com.au.
Are you looking for an investment property but unsure where to buy? Hi, I'm Scott Kuru, CEO and founder of Freedom Property Investors, Australia's #1 property investment advisory with over 7,500 members and clients. Now, in the last 3 months alone, over 500 of my clients have purchased an investment property in a growth location. What many property investors don't know is there is currently a property boom in affordable locations all around the country. To learn more, head to freedompropertyinvestors.com.au. That's freedompropertyinvestors.com.au.